You are Locked On Bears POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bears postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. My name's Joe George. Sorry about that. Checking the audio because we're on take 2 here. But welcome into the Bears Locked On postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. The Bears lose in wild fashion. Hail Mary to end the game. The audio issues kind of gave me a second here to collect my thoughts. So in a way, I'm thankful for them because what a mess the end of that Bears game was. I was running up new graphics and getting this thing ready to go because that looked like a signed, sealed, delivered Chicago Bears win, but it was not. Presenting sponsor today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app to create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so today's game, there's a lot to get into. Obviously, the ending of that game, both on offense and then the Hail Mary at the end. The offense throughout the game, the bend but don't break defense. Got to have a fall guy or two in this one as well because it just was not a good day for the Chicago Bears across the board. Coming off the bye especially. Not a lot to be thrilled with this coaching staff, with Caleb Williams specifically. Definitely his worst game as a player for the Chicago Bears. So there's a lot to get into. We'll start with the end there. I mean, some of that stuff, look, unfortunate things can happen in football, but to see the ball get tipped up in the air like that, Washington comes down with the ball, and they beat you, and they win this game when you struggled all day long on offense, and your offense finally comes through, and your coach gets out of its own way, because what a disaster play call Shane Waldron had earlier in the game. Look, this is something that these guys should know. Like they said it there, Tony Romo said at the end of the broadcast, you got to bat the ball down. You can't let that happen. I mean, I'm getting DMs and tweets saying congrats on the Bears win, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a tweet saying bruh, because I'm watching this game a little bit behind, and the ball has not even gone up in the air yet by the time people have seen the results and what happened. And what a mess. What an absolute disaster way for the Bears to lose this game, because you thought that, okay, they're going to keep coming out. They're going to find a way to win this game, get the momentum going. Bad offense, sure. Because one thing I've heard people say, and I've kind of taken this into, a lot of what I view the early season for the Bears and now, especially in Caleb Williams' rookie years, winning gives you time. Like winning football games gives you time to overcome bad quarterback play and growth struggles that you're going to see from Caleb Williams and just this entire Bears roster. But a loss like today, it sets you back. When the Green Bay Packers find a way to win, even though Jordan Love gets hurt. When the Detroit Lions might be the best offense in the NFL this season, and you still have to play those teams 4 times this season. You still have to play the Vikings 2 more times this season. If you wanted to make the playoffs, and that's obviously still the Bears' goal this season with the way the way the record was shaping out, besides just developing Caleb, this would have been a huge win for the Bears today. But just to lose in that heartbreaking fashion, it was tough. I cannot believe that the Bears won that game or lost the game that way. We've seen the Bears win so many games, obviously. Like, as we all know, lifelong Bears fans, like we've seen the Bears lose in heartbreaking fashion to Aaron Rodgers all the time. But you don't think it's going to happen when Jaden Daniels is the one throwing the ball up there. That felt like a vintage Packers loss in a way where you had them on the ropes, you had the win, and then it just collapses on you in the final moments there. But to not focus on the negative of that too much, because there's still a lot more to talk about besides just one disastrous play. Let's look at the other side of the ball here, that final drive for the Chicago Bears, before we look at the rest of the game on this one. So obviously the Bears are down 7-12, and we see DeAndre Swift, boom, boom, boom. Couple big plays. He gets the hurdle. He's looking good. They're moving the ball down the field. Caleb Williams pulled up his magic again, which he was trying to do the entire game. The protection was a disaster for most of this game. You have 3 offensive lineman injuries that happened. Tevin Jenkins obviously returned, but Caleb has to pull some magic out of his hat. And, it's the play where he's rolling out to the right, flips it back over the middle of the field to Keenan Allen, who was blocking, for most of the play. But that just gets you in position again to score. Then you get the incomplete pass to DJ Moore, but you get the penalty. And then finally, this time, Shane Waldron looks at his playbook and says, maybe my best thing I should do is hand the ball to Roschon Johnson instead of an offensive lineman pretending to be a fullback. He does, and the Bears got the lead there. And then 4 plays later, and a Hail Mary, the Bears lost. So that's how today's game went. It was not enjoyable the way that game ended. It was not an enjoyable football game pretty much throughout. The offense was a disaster in this game. I mean, at one point, Caleb Williams, he's 4 for 13 for 36 yards, and they're just not moving the ball at all. He had 36 rushing yards at all, and you can blame the offensive line. You can blame Shane Waldron. You can blame Caleb Williams for this one. I honestly don't think that if you want to pick and choose whose fault it was that the Bears lost this game, I don't think there's a wrong answer. This is a right answers only kind of question, is why did the Bears lose? If you want to pinpoint this game on Caleb Williams, you have every right to. This was by far his worst game as the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. I thought the Texans game was a disaster too, but at least the Texans there are bringing the heat the entire game. This one from the very beginning, Caleb is trying to get the ball to open guys in that first possession, and he's whipping it right by Rome Odunze, and you could tell he just felt a little amped up in this game. You kind of, if you're following along on Twitter, and that's all people are saying, and you can just see it happening on the broadcast or on the game, as he's just kind of playing out of control in a lot of ways. But then that's when things start to unravel that around him that aren't his fault. You get this, your left tackle gets hurt, and they bring in this kid who I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he's a disaster pretty much from the go. He had a nice block, obviously, on the DeAndre Swift touchdown, but pretty much just a total mess up front. Even when, all the starting 5 were out there, even though it was a short period of time, they weren't protecting well for Caleb Williams in this game. And Caleb just didn't really know where to go with the ball. He didn't know how to get it out quickly enough. The guys weren't really open. Like, even when they were, showing the behind the quarterback perspective in this game, and, Caleb is swarmed by defensive players. They're trying to point out the receivers on the broadcast, and Tony Romo's circling them all, and, there's a guy right next to him. And yes, it's the NFL, and you have to find a way to throw guys open, but just didn't feel like, these guys were really open a lot either. So you can look at Caleb, you can look at the offensive line, look at the wide receivers, and you can look at Shane Waldron and just the preparedness for this game. And I will go back to 2 moments this season whenever the Bears struggle that stand out to why I did not like the hire, why the previous 2 games did not shake me of that feeling. It's the Houston Texans game where Shane Waldron's shaking as he's calling plays, and maybe it's just a nervous guy, but you don't like to see that. And then also the report that came out on the Score in Chicago that I believe it was a Score, it might have been 1,000, one of the 2 radio stations, that Shane Waldron for majority of the season was not scripting plays to start a game. Instead of coming up with something and practicing it and making life easier for your quarterback, they were actively trying to make it harder. So just felt like coming off a bye week, I didn't expect the Bears to do what they did the previous 2 games. Like, that is unrealistic expectations, for this football team, where they scored 36 points against Carolina, 35 points against Jacksonville. But to come out and be this bad and this poor off your bye week is completely and utterly unacceptable for the Chicago Bears. So just a tough game all around for the Bears, and a game that, honestly, even if you take away the Hail Mary and the Bears' final possession where they scored out of the equation, if the game would have just ended 12-7, I would have said on this show still, this was a game the Bears should have won. Your defense played exceptional, and we'll get into that when we get back here, because it is something that we've seen far too often as Bears fans, where the team is just completely inept on offense and stout and incredible on defense. My name is Joe George. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joe George Radio. If you're watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll be doing live postcast shows after every single Chicago Bears game this season. We'll also be doing them for the Bulls, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and eventually the Cubs when baseball season gets around. So we'll talk about that defense next. Find some good in today's game. That's next here on the Locked On Bears postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. All right, let's talk about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you might want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that help you find the right professionals. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job and might be open to the new perfect role. In a given month or so, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn for your team, faster and free. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, might not have the time or resources to hire. So LinkedIn is just trying to find ways to make that process even easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job free to LinkedIn, linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. PrizePicks. Join over 110 million users, and you can win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 picks today. I had one set up for today. It was looking really good. 3 down, 1 to go. Caleb Williams, more than 1.5 touchdown passes. We didn't get there. So that's a loss for me today. Right now, when you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win. So if I would use that promo code today, play the $5, I lost. I still would have got that $50 bonuses. Let's look at what we got coming up here on the football board. Today, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, we're going to go with George Kittle, more than a half of a rushing plus receiving touchdown. Dak Prescott, more than a half a passing touchdown. Brandon Aubrey, jury duty, don't matter. More than 1.5 field goals. And CeeDee Lamb, more than 10.5 targets. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, typical Bears fashion, bend don't break. That's what they were doing all day long. No complaints besides the very, very last play for the Chicago Bears defense in this one. The Washington Commanders pretty consistently would move the ball down the field, but when it mattered most, the Bears defense was stepping up in a huge way. Even after Terry McLaurin had that long 60-yard reception, 61-yard reception, the Bears still found a way, shut them down and get them and hold them to a field goal. Montez Sweat, he really stood out to me in this one when he was out there. He was all over the place. Maybe my new favorite Bear, not even new. He's been here obviously for a little bit of time, but it's been an up and down road for Gervon Dexter, and I thought he had a solid game as well in this one. And you almost feel bad for the guys. This is Bears 101 here. Feel bad for the defense because time and time again, they put this team in a position to win the football game, and the offense just can't do anything with it. I mean, it's 12-0 at 5:48 left to go in the third quarter when Austin Seibert makes his 47-yard field goal. 12-0 still. I mean, the defense was just stopping them constantly. If you want to nitpick a little bit, talking about Jaden Daniels, he had a really obviously good day running the football. He was pretty consistent, throughout this game. When he needed a big moment, he was getting outside the pocket and taking off. He rushed for 52 yards in this game. He did throw for 326 yards. I'll be honest, did not feel like he threw for that many yards in this game. But it was a frustrating one. I cannot imagine being a Bears defensive player, whether it's Urlacher or Briggs or Jalen Johnson now, just to do so much and to fall so short time and time again because your quarterbacks just struggle and your offense is just pitiful, throughout your careers. It's got to be one of the most infuriating things. I know how we feel as Bears fans, but I give kudos to the defense today for, doing their best against a really impressive young player in Jaden Daniels. I mean, the way they were getting after him and making life hectic, it would have been nice if they could have hit him a little bit more, to be honest. Let's see what here. We got 2 sacks. This one doesn't have how many times they hit him, but we saw at the end of the game there when they finally got to him, he was holding, they were putting ice on his rib cage, and they said that was just precautionary throughout the game. But you can imagine that, I mean, he's not. I didn't think he was going to play. Like the entire week, I was convinced they were playing Marcus Mariota, and then in the last 24 hours, it feels like it just flipped so fast. Even the tweets late night from from King of Twitch, or not from King of Twitch, from Adam Schefter are just all over the place of like how they were writing these tweets that it's still a last minute decision, but he's expected to play. And you see Rappaport versus Schefter, and it feels like they're almost tweeting about two different stories. So I thought they did a good job overall in this game. And Tremaine Edmonds had a good one. Obviously, TJ Edwards early in the game has one he wishes he could have back when he got absolutely embarrassed by Jaden Daniels. Man, Jaden was, that was a sick move. It was kind of wild to see how much it was that Caleb was had more rushing attempts in this game than Jaden Daniels, because Jaden did feel like he had a lot of time in the pocket. And I know long term, and I'm sure they'll talk about it during the week here on Locked On Bears. I'm sure as we get close to the deadline here, coming up on November 4th or 5th, still feels like the Bears are in need for another pass rusher. And I know Ryan Poles said before the game that they're going to be on the phone trying to make their team better. And we've seen him make, the Montez Sweat trade and the Chase Claypool trade in season. So it kind of feels like there's something else coming in this one. But the Bears defense they did their best today and just couldn't get it done in the end, unfortunately. Bad play, but can't blame them for the loss. Another guy you can't blame, didn't mention him enough in the in that first part there, talking about the offense and what was going on. But DeAndre Swift, we talked about a little bit, but like he deserves more time. 129 yards on 18 carries. What he's become for the Bears offense is really, I'm still surprised a little bit. I didn't think that he was going to be this effective, especially maybe just after the season started and it was so bad. But life has just gotten so much easier for the Bears and DeAndre Swift. And really, you can see it in the second half that like when things started moving, even though they didn't end in more than 15 points for the Bears in this game, it was all based on him. Like not just the touchdown, but as he's starting to run the ball more effectively, it's just getting easier and easier for Caleb Williams. And that's where he had, his best throws were all on those final couple possessions. And look, Caleb only ends up 10 of 24 for 131 yards. The national narrative on Monday is the Bears got the wrong guy. Still don't believe that. Jaden Daniels might be the better quarterback for the long term. Definitely in the now, he's the better quarterback. But I'm not one to believe that it's a written story yet. I think it's way too early after what Caleb had done the last couple weeks. And today's game does, lean to the Jaden Daniels camp of he's the right pick. But I'm still a believer in Caleb Williams, no matter how bad this game was. The real question is for Caleb Williams, for me, and for Shane Waldron, is just what happens next. Like, what do the next two games look like to get back on rhythm and to be able to move the ball down the field with much more ease against the Arizona Cardinals, who pulled off a wild win themselves today, and the New England Patriots, who beat the New York Jets today. But that's what matters the most still is what happens next. Because, like I said, if you weren't listening at the beginning here, if you're just joining us now, what's up? Thank you for joining us. My name is Joe George. You're listening to Locked On Sports Chicago. We do these after every single Bears, Bulls, Cubs, and Notre Dame football game. But this was Caleb Williams' worst game in his career. And, I want more from him. I want to be greedy and want when we got the 2 weeks before the bye week. But just a dreadful day for the Chicago Bears across the board to finally have that momentum and look like you're going to get a win, and then for it to end as badly as it does. It's going to sting for a while, and we're going to find out a lot about who the Chicago Bears are as an organization under Matt Eberflus, under the quarterback Caleb Williams, of just how they respond next week and what it looks like, because that's a devastating loss to where you could have kept yourself in prime playoff position, especially as the Philadelphia Eagles are starting to play a lot better football, are going to make it really challenging for the Bears to make the playoffs this season if that's what your goals are. And for me, that's what the goals are. This is a good football team and with a young quarterback and a lot of room to grow, but just not the best day, to say the least. So who's the fall guy? Who are we blaming the most throughout the week and right now. You can let me know here in the comments or on Twitter at Joe George Radio. Who is your fall guy? Who are you blaming the most? Enemy number one for why the Chicago Bears lost this game. We'll do that right when we get back here on the Locked On Bears postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Going to games, let's make it nice and easy. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams playing live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Let's see how easy this is. Gametime's the app that I use. It's my go-to all the time for tickets. When I got introduced to it, I never went back from using Gametime. Let's pull up the Chicago Bulls. We'll be doing one of those postcasts here coming up next on Monday night. Chicago Bulls, easiest way to get in. See, the problem is it's pulling up all the Houston stuff. Wednesday night's game versus the Magic at home. $18 to get it. You can see they got the top Gametime deals. You got super deal here, $44 just to get in, $24 to get in. Super easy to go in, get your tickets at Gametime. My favorite thing about Gametime that I really do like, and look, as Cubs fans, we know that this is important, right? I tell people if they're going to the Cubs game and you're using Gametime, use the panoramic views from your seat because there might be a giant pole in your way. So always use that. Always a great reminder to your friends as well, especially if they're going to a Cubs game this year, to make sure they don't get screwed over and get one of those tough seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, who's the fall guy for this Bears game? Who are we blaming the most? You can, like I said, if you were just listening, Caleb Williams can be held accountable. Matt Eberflus, the head coach of this team, is easy. Which whoever the defender was, honestly, everything happened so fast and so chaotically. I don't even know who tipped up the ball as I'm doing this live because it was just a mad dash to redo everything because, well, I thought they won the football game, and they did not. So number one fall guy for me today, I could blame Caleb. It's fair to blame Caleb. I'm going to blame Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. We'll go for the duo here. Shane Waldron's the offensive coordinator, so he gets the brunt of this. Because Matt Eberflus clearly had his defense prepared. They were ready for Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels had some success, but for the most part, because until that last play, you kept him out of the end zone. All they were doing was kicking field goals. They were getting big plays, but it was the bend, don't break philosophy was working so well and so effectively for this team that I don't think you can even get that upset with Matt Eberflus. I mean, I know he's the head coach of this football team, but he's not the OC. And this is my beef with Shane Waldron. It has been, is that when things are not working, they just don't know where to turn. And that's what today really felt like watching Caleb and the Bears, was that when Caleb's under fire and things are not going well, they don't know what to do to fix it. And I'm not going to blame that on a rookie quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and say that Caleb Williams, as a rookie, has to have every single answer to the test. He doesn't. Look, Jaden Daniels didn't, if you want to comp the two guys, Jaden, for the most part, didn't have an answer. They were just running the ball effectively most of the game. Or he was just chucking it downfield to scary Terry McLaurin, who has been a fantasy darling this season. And the Bears couldn't even do that. They couldn't find a way to get Caleb anytime. I don't even feel like they tried that hard to run play action to get him outside the pocket. They were just doing the same thing over and over again. And it was, it's the definition of insanity. Do the same thing over and over again, and you're just going to fail the same way time and time. They're not going to improve mid-game. It's really challenging to see how the Bears, what they're going to do in 3 weeks when they play the Packers, in 4 weeks when they play the Vikings, and then the Lions, and then the 49ers. Oh, and then you play all your divisional opponents again because you haven't played any of them yet. How is Caleb Williams going to survive against Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings if Shane Waldron can't ever make any adjustments? He's just out there winging it. And I don't understand how they don't see how things are going so poorly and not trying anything differently. And he's the ultimate fall guy, because what the hell was that play call? Like, what are you doing? Finally, having offensive success, getting down into the end zone to the 1 yard line, and deciding that handing the ball to an offensive lineman on the 1 yard line is a good decision. I cannot believe that like Caleb Williams has to even have that on his statistical record. That's his fault. And they tried on the broadcast, I felt like, to blame him because he got back there too fast or whatever they were saying. It's a stupid play call. Like we've seen, since we thought the offense had turned a corner, this was introduced. Like you go back to the Indianapolis game, 4 plays within the 5 yard line. You don't score a touchdown. The next week, they come out, they introduce Kramer at fullback. They run Roschon Johnson right behind him, 4 touchdown. They run DeAndre Swift right behind him, 4 touchdown. The next week, we see them use him in motion. He's in motion moving into the pile to make things easier. So the evolution of that is to give him the ball. Like that's a play you run when you're up by 3 touchdowns, not a play that you run when you are desperate to get in the end zone. It is one of the worst play calls I've ever seen from an offensive coordinator. I don't understand how that can be your mindset in any way, shape, or form to say, I'm going to give the ball to a offensive lineman and watch him grab the ball and it floats away before it's even in his gut. Like, it's not like he got the ball and fumbled it. Like, at least then, like, I give him a break if that happened. But to just make this decision, it's just mind-blowing. So Shane Waldron, for me, because throughout the game, I felt there were no adjustments. And because he called that disaster play, Shane Waldron is 100% the ultimate reason why the Bears lost this football game. Caleb Williams was not good enough. No doubt, no argument about it. But when it mattered most, he got you down the field. He got you in position to score. And you called that play. Oh, because then he did it again. He scored the next drive. Like, this game should have been shut and done when they got down there to the 1 yard line if they just gave Roschon Johnson the ball. Like, what are you doing? Why is he on the team if this is the stupid things you're going to do? You're choosing to make Khalil Herbert inactive, which is fine, because Roschon Johnson's going to be the guy that you give the ball to in this situation. But instead, you get way too cutesy and you give it to Kramer. And it's just a disaster. And the fact that the Bears were even in position to win the football game after that is a miracle, considering you scored your first touchdown, let's see, with 3 minutes and 56 seconds, it looks like. No, that's wrong. But just a little bit of time left in the game, you finally score your first touchdown, and then you lose on a Hail Mary. And it's absolutely your offensive coordinator's fault. And there's just... I'm honestly just baffled by that decision, and I'm very pro. I don't want Caleb Williams to go through what a lot of these other guys have gone through of changing offensive coordinators, but at this point, I don't really see why this guy is going to have a job going into next season. He's not good enough. He makes decisions like this. Caleb Williams, Caleb better look a lot better in the next couple games. For me to be convinced that Shane Waldron deserves to be here. Because if you miss the playoffs by 1 game, we should all be looking back at this one and saying Shane Waldron is really the reason why the Bears did not make the playoffs in 2024 and why the Washington Commanders and Jayden Daniels did. So congrats to the Washington Commanders. You got the Shane Waldron rub-off on this one because he cost the Bears. Absolutely. Thanks for checking us out. If you're here with us live on YouTube, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joe George Radio as well. We'll be live for every Bears game right after, as soon as it ends. Hopefully the next one will be a win against the Arizona Cardinals. They play at 3 o'clock next Sunday, 3:05 technically next Sunday. So we'll be here live as soon as that game wraps up every single week for the Bears, for the Bulls, the Irish football team, and of course for the Chicago Cubs when baseball season gets back around. Thanks for checking us out. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joe George Radio. Hit that subscribe button, and we will talk to you next time. And for the Bears, Hopefully, it's a much, much better ending.